This interview is brought to you by the 21-Day Challenge. If you're an entrepreneur, high achiever, you're feeling overwhelmed, stuck, lost, and you just want to get back into your prime condition, your best shape ever, and kick butt, take names, and become your greatest possible self, get crystal clear on your life goals, break it down into bite-sized steps, and have daily accountability, daily practice succeed, that's the 21-Day Challenge. Message me, Chris, at beyourgps.com, or find me on Facebook and message me there. Next up is the iTunes review of the week, and this week it's by ASLDFH something on iTunes. It's a random name, but hey, it's a cool recommendation. It says, such an uplifting energy. Chris shines so brightly. This is a man on a mission to spread love and authenticity. I'm in awe of his commitment to have fun, creating a life of fulfillment and abundance, supporting others to do the same. Keep up the good work, Chris. The world needs you. Thank you so much. If you want to give us a review, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes or search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on the iTunes store. I appreciate you. Looking forward to hearing what your feedback is for the show. All right, so I'm going to bring Elliot on in a minute here. Before that, grab a pen, grab paper. He's going to drop some incredible wisdom. He's accomplished incredible things in his life, empowering men, empowering people to start their own gyms, their own strength camps. He's a CEO, helping to franchise his awesome brand that he's created. And just stick around because you're going to get hit in the face. He takes no prisoners. He's blunt. He's real. He's himself, and that's just the way we want to be as we're being our greatest possible self. So let's introduce him, and then we'll bring him on the screen. Elliott Hulse, strongman, strength coach, and CEO of Strength Camp. As a true underdog story of a self-made entrepreneur who overcame learning disabilities and disadvantages to become one of the most prolific visionary leaders to a generation of men. Elliott Hulse has inspired over 2.7 million men worldwide through his physical fitness and life mastery YouTube channels to take back their power in life and become the strongest versions of themselves. Strength Camp International, his training organization with the mission to change the culture through fitness and life mastery, empowers men to grow into stronger coaches, entrepreneurs, and leaders in their life. And we're blessed to have him here with us today. Elliot, are you ready to rock this, brother? He's ready to rock. Awesome, dude. We're now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us and share about your perspective of men, of masculinity, and how we can really transform ourselves in the coming years and decades. So thanks for being here, dude. Appreciate you.
My pleasure, yeah.
Awesome, man. So we're going to dive right into the theme of the day, which is take a stand. So Elliot, how does this concept, this principle of take a stand show up for you in your life?
Oh, everywhere, all the time, from the choices that we have to make about career and relationships, making a choice and sticking with it.
Yeah, powerful, man. So is there anywhere in particular that you discovered this concept of take a stand? Like how did it first come into your awareness that it was an important, critical part of being you? And that you wanted to teach it to others as well?
I think I've most recently had a big experience with that, taking a stand, because I became popular on YouTube for making big statements and taking a stand and being aggressive and being this way. And that's just my nature. That's the way I've been. That's the way I've been since I was a kid. And a few years ago, I started questioning myself. I stopped taking a stand, and I started letting the opinions of other people take precedence over me just being me and taking a stand, no matter what kind of crazy shit I want to say, or who I want to be, or how God is expressing himself through me. As a result, I began to be hesitant about taking a stand. And I didn't take a stand any longer in a lot of things, even though inside I felt very different than what the world was trying to make me believe or trying to persuade me towards. And I think that was good for me because I got to see what it was like to be a person that's weak. I've always been strong. And when you're always strong, it's hard to have compassion for people that don't have that strength. And so I was humbled, and I'm grateful for the experience, and being able to go through that weakness, go through that period of questioning myself and not being confident, has has made me so much more confident now
Yeah.
in who I am as a result.
Wow.
So that's one of my experiences with taking a stand. Now today, where I am and who you're speaking to is a man who is redelivering his stance. And it's so funny because a lot of the new things that I'm doing in the world and what I'm sharing with men in particular has always been there, and it seems that it's just reemerging in me. Like I'm like almost, I love. It looks almost like you have a phoenix behind you
Yes,
there.
sir.
And I almost feel like a version of myself, rose and then burned down.
Yeah.
And that burn down process was where I wasn't taking a stand. Like we're talking about my experience with this and the contrast thereof. But it's amazing how that downturn and that burn down leads to a build up. And that phoenix, when it burns and comes back, it's the same phoenix, but a smarter phoenix, a better phoenix, a more wiser phoenix. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. Awesome. So that's a phenomenal response, and thanks for diving into recently what's been showing up for you. And for our audience who's just connecting with you, why don't you share a little bit more about what you've accomplished, so to speak, with your YouTube channel and what your clients come to you for today?
Well, I'm a strength coach by trade. I teach people how to get stronger, and that's what I do on the physical level, and I do it on the metaphysical level. It's all around. It's holistic to me. But as a strength coach and then a professional strongman around the time that I began making YouTube videos in 2007, I became popular for giving really good answers, sometimes a little off the wall answers, meaning like I make people think outside of the box because I think outside of the box. And YouTube was fairly new, so it wasn't, there are a lot of out of the box thinkers now. I mean, everybody's just sharing themselves, but I started making YouTube videos when YouTube first started. So I have to acknowledge that I was kind of a pioneer, one of the first people. And as a result, I have been recognized internationally, worldwide, with millions of subscribers as a man that teaches men how to grow stronger.
Yeah.
This is where we're at this moment.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. We're going to be diving into that, like the philosophy of what does that mean? What's the foundation? What are the pillars of doing that? And before we get there, I do want to go back into your journey and talk about how did you become this strong man? You said you've always been strong. It's I think it's like there's usually conditioning process through our younger years that would have you show up that way. So what was that conditioning for you that had you have this thick skin that a lot of people today are missing? There's a lot of like weak, wimpy people who are defeated at the first sign of difficulty, and that wasn't you. So how did you cultivate that?
I was blessed in a myriad of different ways, and number one of which was genetics. I come from good stock.
Yes.
My parents are from Belize, and they grew up eating very healthy food. That's awesome. Poor people food, but very healthy food. My parents grew up eating coconut and chicken, and So as a result of coming from good genetics, both my parents are very strong people, and the fact that they had very healthy diets. When they came to America and they had us, we ended up being very strong, healthy people. And so I remember being in kindergarten, first grade, and my uncle, my mother's brother, who was a black belt in Kung Fu, he was a gymnast, he did backflips, he was an all-around Superman. He was incredible. Genetics, once again. And he began teaching me and my brother how to like do push-ups and sit-ups, and we were punching a heavy bag and things of this nature when we were in like kindergarten and first grade. So the genetics on top of great mentorship and healthy diet, because we ate a healthy diet in my home. I was bigger, stronger, and faster than all the kids growing up. We played sports, and I was always the first one. I was the captain, and that developed a healthy self-esteem in me.
Yeah.
So I knew I was strong. I am strong. I'm a strong man. I mean, I was a strong kid, and the world sort of like shined that back to me. Awesome. And so I received that, and I reflected that in the world as a college football player. I was an MVP.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went on to become a strength coach because my uncle around the time I was 14 years old began being a personal trainer, and this was like 2000. This was like 1994, and so personal training wasn't even like a thing. Like
Right.
he was like one of the first personal trainers, and I saw my uncle creating a living for himself, teaching people how to lift.
Mm.
So he taught me when I was a kid, and then when I was a teenager, I'm like, oh my. He was a bodybuilder too at that time, so he was like bodybuilding, and he had a career where he was in the gym all day long. And to me, I was like, it's a no-brainer. That's exactly
Heaven.
that's what I'll be doing. So I studied exercise science in college, and then left university playing college football, and did some internships and worked as a personal trainer, fitness coach, strength coach. And then I ventured out onto my own. I became an entrepreneur. That's a totally different, I can go down that route, but we're talking about being a strong man right now. And a part of my going out in business for myself and the development that I was going through in order to position myself, I became a professional strongman before like strongman was a big thing. Strongman's like you go to Gold's Gym and they got tires. I mean, no matter what, like it's new now. But again, I was kind of a pioneer, and I was training people with strongman equipment. I was training mostly men and athletes in the park with strongman equipment. I was competing in strongman. I was 249 pounds, and I think I have a trophy behind me. Nope, no trophy's downstairs. I won this big, beautiful trophy. Big, strong dude lifting a stone.
Yeah.
And so I was a strong man. I'm a strong man, and I'm a strong man, and I'm a strength coach, and I make YouTube videos. So there are a lot of young men asking me questions about strength. And as they learn to trust me because of my good information about strength, they also began to trust me to ask questions about other areas in their lives. Like I said before, career and girlfriends, places we could make a stand. Career, girlfriend, parents, all these types of things. And so I gained the trust of quite a large amount of young men, not only to teach them how to be strong men, but strong men in every area of our lives.
That's awesome, man. Do you see that you would do anything different if you started over from today's current building an influence, building an online brand marketplace?
Well, if you mean would I go back and change anything, the answer is no.
Right.
But if you mean if I had to start today,
yeah,
what would my answer be?
Yeah.
My answer would be to go really deep. I would spend more time thinking out my thoughts. Let me put it that way. Yeah. And I don't even know if that's my nature. That may have not worked, but I see the benefit of doing that. I'm spontaneous. Yeah. And so most of my videos, they're just, like I said before, God speaking through me. A lot of times they're just like tip of the tongue. It's just like, I'm just spitting. I'm not thinking about what's coming out of my head. And I don't even know what I'm saying sometimes. And I go back and I say it. And it's been wonderful because I know that's been a gift. Yeah. But it's also gotten me to a lot of trouble. And as a result, you gain one thing, but you lose another. And I remember being a kid and my dad would always like, Elliot, you have to think before you speak. Think before you speak. Think before you speak. Because I was getting in trouble a lot. I'd say things and offend people or just be in trouble all the time because I'm just spitting. I'm just, I'm a kid with a big mouth. And so that's also gotten me into trouble, on YouTube. But also I see the benefit of, which, I'm doing a lot more now in my wisdom, taking my time and really collecting my thoughts, and building a core foundation from which I'm going to reach the world, as opposed to just showing up and being me. But I wouldn't go back and change it. Right. I'd say just be more, I would say, focus,
intentional, being more intentional about like what are the consequences of me saying these things and like pursuing this path, so to speak. If this energy, if I continue down this energy and this thought pattern, this paradigm for years, what would be the consequences of that? And to like be aware of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So at what point did you really start like focusing on a paradigm for men, like how to teach men how to be men and own their masculinity and also, you know, their femininity, have this balance while like reclaiming their sovereign, you know, sovereign ownership of themselves and who they want to show up as, their identity in this world. Where did you start like building that and knowing that that's something that you wanted to create and cultivate and give to men?
I've been this from the beginning.
Hmm.
I'm only now like learning who I am in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. Meaning like being able to look back and say, oh yeah, 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 that's what I've been and what I've always done.
Yeah.
I was the oldest of four, three boys, and like I said, strongest in school, fastest. Football, I was the captain, so I was always a leader of men. It was even as a kid, like the kids that weren't as strong and which ultimately weren't as confident
Mm-hmm.
as me, put me on a pedestal in a lot of ways, or reflected through me and lived through me and would ask me questions and want to work out with me. I actually remember even back when I was in elementary school, I was like teaching my friends how to do push-ups and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
So I go into my career as a personal trainer, and it's after playing football. It's after my whole childhood. I'm 24 years old, and I go work at a fitness gym.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Lifestyle Family Fitness. It was called. It's LA Fitness now.
Mm-hmm.
They bought it. And I'm a personal trainer, just run-of-the-mill personal trainer. I mean, I'm good at what I'm doing. I know and I have athletic experience, and I know what I'm doing. But just by being me, everybody knows that as a personal trainer, you're going to earn most of your money from women. Women usually hire personal trainers, and there's a particular type of woman that can be home during the day, like my wife. You can hire a personal trainer. She goes to my gym instead. But you get it. But for some reason, I was getting all these dudes, like all the guys, like whenever, like all the other trainers, they had a majority of women. And I just looked at my roster one day and I'm like, I got like 80% guys on my list. And I just thought that was funny. I was just like, we can't seem to get away from dudes. Like, we're always like we're on a team together. And it just registered in my head, but I thought nothing of it. It wasn't until I started studying marketing, and one of the questions that I think I came across when I was reading, maybe a Dan Kennedy book, was to know who your ideal client is. Look at who your clients already are. And I was like, I work with guys. Yeah. And it was easy and it made perfect sense. And when I worked with women, it wasn't as easy and it didn't make as much sense. And it's not because of anything against women. It's just that I work well with men. Yeah. I'm a manly man.
Yeah.
So
would you say that there was anything about like being an alpha, like that you noticed in particular that you did well that other men didn't do well?
I didn't know I was an alpha, but now that I know what an alpha is, I know that my dad's an alpha. And I see how much of my dad is in me. Wow. Before we talked about taking a stand, and that, the majority of my childhood, as I explained it to you, in my early adulthood, and me just feeling comfortable in taking a stand and just being confident, being outspoken, it being my genetics. I was just born and bred to be alpha in that way. But recently I've discovered a ton of undercurrent of blue pill conditioning, you know what I mean? Beta conditioning that's in me that I'm only now exploring and have exposed in myself these past 4 or 5 years. It's been a large part of my healing that I've been going through. Like I said, I stopped taking a stance. I began retreating on my alphaness. I remember actually even being ashamed of my alphaness.
Wow.
And I know it has a lot to do with the beta conditioning that we receive in school. And it caught up to me. And I allowed a few people to say a few things. And I had some guilt and shame about a few things. And all of a sudden, the whole alpha cards came crumbling down. And that little blue pill beta undercurrent that now I look back and I realize was always there, has been able to come up for healing,
Mm.
so that I can process it.
Mhm.
I have been processing, and so I can be that much more alpha because I know about my beta. I know about my that inner feminine dark place that resides within every single man. Let me put
Yeah.
it that way.
Yeah. So what I hear is there was like the alpha exterior, which is you, that it is who you are, but
Mhm.
underneath there was this place of beta that you didn't even want
Right.
to acknowledge. You're like, no, it doesn't exist. Like that's not who I am. I'm this alpha. And like
I just didn't
after,
know.
no.
I didn't deny it because the minute I saw it, I was like, "Oh shit! I get it." It took a long time to awake to that and to heal that.
Right.
One book that really helped me put that into perspective, even as I've been going through the healing process and dealing with my inner chode, my inner beta, towards the end, which is like earlier this year, I came across The Rational Male by
Mm.
Rollo Tomasi. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but this
Mm-mm.
whole red pill, masculine red pill movement, they call them the manosphere. These guys, they've been talking about what it means to be a man. Pretty cool stuff. I would invite most men to take a look at that. Two books that I highly recommend for understanding masculinity. Number one is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover
Mm.
by Robert Moore, but also that one that I would put with that is Iron John
Mm.
by Robert Bly, which are both mythological, psychological. They're very powerful books as it relates to the spirituality of men. But then one that gets right down to the practicalities of how to deal with women
Mm-hmm.
and the social conditioning that feminizes us to a tremendous degree is The Rational Male by Rollo Tomasi. So when I read that book and he put phrases to the behaviors, I didn't know what red pill was or blue pill was. Like I said, I wasn't interested in what alpha was. I just was it,
Mm.
alpha and beta. But when I read this book, it woke me up to a lot of things that I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And then when I saw it, I went to right away. I started working on, okay, how do I process this and move forward. So
Yeah.
it's been amazing.
That's awesome. Would you say that, like for men, how does a man know if it's really important that they read those books, or if it's important for them? We have a lot of entrepreneurs and stuff in the audience. If they go read an entrepreneurial book, a marketing book, like how do you know which is more important? Or would you say that it's always going to be, hey, understand what it means to be a man? Because if you have that first, then everything else becomes more accessible and natural for you.
I love the way that's a great question. And I love the way you put it. And it reminds me of how in traditional societies, there were masculine rites of passage, initiation processes that were acknowledged and adhered to because it's very, very important. And I'll tell you why in a moment. For young men to be introduced to the world of the father.
Mm-hmm.
Separation from the mother because we're not a woman, not like our sisters, we're men, and introduction into the world of the father. And it was through that process of initiation, movement towards the father, where the fathers, the elders, the grandfathers, the patriarchs would, among many things, instill a sense of meaning in the boy's life.
Mm.
Why are you here? This is why we had like religion and rituals. Why are you here? What is the bigger picture and how do you fit in when you go back? And without that foundation and that understanding and the accountability to that collective vision and dream for the society, meaning for the society, the young men would go back to society and be in complete confusion and chaos.
Yeah.
And it can go in many different ways. But what we see more than any in our day and age, that confusion and chaos either shows up in the confusion of highly feminized, beta down boys who, social media boys who are taking selfies and and it gets really, really weird today because, and I don't want to go too far into it because I'll ruffle some feathers, but even this whole idea of transgenderism, where they're teaching that it's okay for boys to cut off their penises if they don't know what it's like to be a man. Wild, wild, wild stuff. But on the other end of that spectrum also too are, what some feminists might call toxic masculinity, which both of them are toxic. It's all very toxic. None of this is mature. Is like I would have been. I would have been perfect for a gang. I would have been a great gang leader. I'm very aggressive, very violent. That's why I was good at football and strongman. I would have no problem taking somebody's life. And so when young men aren't given that meaning, and they go into the world, it doesn't matter what we do, because we'll always be proceeding from a weaker place than if we would have been introduced to who we are as men. And that's why those books, I recommend those books. They're very important. I recommend the topic of what it is to be a man as a very important topic. Yes. We've been told a whole lot of bullshit about you should just know what it means to be a man. No, number one, we live in a feminized world where it's more appropriate to be a woman or a beta bitch than to be an alpha male. And the only teachings we've ever got were not from our fathers and not from our pastors and not from our elders that gave us meaning in our life, but fucking TV and commercials and social media
and teachers.
And buy and consume more shit.
Yeah.
So we do need to for men to make a resurgence in our mature alpha masculinity. We do need to seek out what it is to be a man and study these things that I'm talking about.
Yeah. So it's almost like if men haven't done that work on themselves, then hey, keep studying whatever else you're studying, but the priority should be, what does it mean to be a man? Because without that foundation, there's not understanding, there's confusion, there's chaos, there's it's like when we talk about taking a stand, you're not able to take the most solid foundational stand for whatever is important to you that you could if you don't understand who you are. When you're crystal clear, when you have that clarity, that certainty on who you are and why you do what you do, then you're a lot more congruent and powerful, and nothing can stop you or distract you because you know who you are.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So studying is good, books are good, but mentorship is critical. We need each other, and we need older men. We need wise men.
What do you look for in a older wise man, a mentor, so to speak, that can help you or people who are watching right now, young men, to become a successful and congruent and aligned man?
Well, the first thing I would say is God bless you if you have a father, regardless of how he is, because you get to see that you're patterned after him. That's why he's called the paternity, the paternity test. Yeah. That's where the word pattern comes from.
Damn.
Or paternity, father. The word father comes from pattern.
That's awesome.
And regardless of what your opinion is of him or how he has been in his life, you're patterned after him, and it's good to know. It's good to have him, regardless. But then move towards men. It's challenging because the minute we leave our mother's arms, we're sent into a system where we're feminized by school. School is not designed for adventure and other boys horse playing around and male masculine centered education. That's not what it is. You're sitting in a classroom with boys and girls sitting in rows, all being good children to another mommy, to a surrogate mommy all day long.
Wow.
That's what it is for the most part.
Yeah.
So number one, there's this inundation of the feminine psyche injected into boys. We also have the chemical disruption that's a product of the pollution and in the food and in the water, estrogen, xenoestrogens, pesticides, these things that are feminizing men. We have a media that portrays men either as bumbling fools or toxic tyrants.
Right.
And then we don't know our dads. You know, because our dads, I said it's great to have dads, but a lot of times he's either working hard to provide for the family, he's not there very much. He is either absent completely. I don't know my dad, or my dad left, and I don't know much of him. Or he is a blue-pilled, baited-down woman man who more than likely behaves like one of the children with his wife rather than the leader, the strong leader and patriarch of the family. So we have lots of examples and lots of inundation of things that make us feminized, and very little in the way of masculine patterns to look to, because it's the boys, it's our instinct to look to men for what's up, what do we need to do. And so I think that's a primal thing that we're looking, all men are looking, and that's why I realized so many young men were attracted to my videos. I didn't have to be that or say that. I just showed up, and boys who saw a reflection of a type of masculinity that they may like to reflect were drawn towards me and my words. And so what my advice is to see who you're drawn to, be it a grandfather or an uncle, or it's wonderful to have mentors through YouTube and the internet. That's wonderful also too. And know that they're all wounded little boys themselves who are reflecting back parts of yourself that you have within, but you can seek out there as a pattern. And know that although we as a collective of men have lost the initiation processes and the role of mentorship and the processes of mentorship in the way that our ancestors did, that as a result, even our fathers and our grandfathers and most of the men that we deal with as American men are uninitiated and wounded in that way. To forgive our fathers and to forgive them for that, because we'll never really get close to our own inner authority if we can't forgive and love the authority around us, other men. We can't heal with the fact that our fathers are broken and that our world is broken and that we have been deprived of this masculine right. We can't forgive that. We'll always be resentful, and there will always be almost a hatred for self and towards other men, and the confusion about what we're all here doing. The byproduct of this is animosity or suspicion between men. We're so suspect of one another.
Yeah.
And you see it even in like the homophobia that keeps us to be physically away from one another. Yeah. And there are some cultures, men hug and they hold hands, and that, you see pictures like from the olden days. It's just funny. It looks real homosexual. So we laugh now. They're like men sitting on each other's lap. They're like cowboys. They're like manly men. Right. And so anyway, I'm starting to rant right now, and I'm going left field in so many ways. But as a result of everything I'm saying right now, we're at a critical junction where we're offered an opportunity to create a brand new collective story, mythology, meaning with one another, begin to soften the barriers between one another, and move towards this world where men are great again.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. How do we create those initiation rituals and rites of passage, so to speak? How do we find someone who we look up to, a mentor, a teacher, a leader, and say, "Hey, I want to go through this process of becoming a man." How can we ask them for help? How can we really forgive our fathers? What's that process look like? How does it look like on a daily tactical basis, so to speak?
Well, number one, just let me answer, to forgive the father, you literally just have to ask for his, or forgive him. I'm sorry, not ask for his, but forgive him. Forgive him in your heart. Forgive him with words. And same thing with your mother. We can't move forward. Freud even spoke about this. The Oedipal complex. We can't move forward in life until we stop wanting to marry our moms and kill our dads. That's what he called it, Oedipal complex, based on Oedipus Rex, the stories. So what I'm describing, like I said, it's happening anyway, whether we're conscious of it or not. So it's not like we have to go look for it. It's happening whether we're conscious of it or not. It's either happening, but the thing is, it's either happening in a resourceful way or in a perverted way. So this initiation, like when we see it with gangs, it's happening. They're being initiated, and gangs are great because they do exactly what boys need them to do. And there's an initiation process. And it's rigorous, and it will challenge you. And when you're done, you're a part of something. I mean, that's it. You want to know? Look at gangs. That's how they do it. Consciously, it's a pseudo initiation, and it's an initiation into immature masculinity, of course, because it's a bunch of boys. But it's initiation nonetheless. So my point is that it's happening all the time. For me, I was initiated through the iron, I like to say, through the barbell. I was 14 years old, and my uncle came back into my life, the one I was telling you about before. He initiated me in so many ways, he unconsciously and me unconsciously. At around 14 years old, when you're being initiated into that, that's 12, 14, 15, that's it. There's a big there's a big contrast there.
Yeah.
He coached me with lifting. He taught me how to eat and how to track my workouts and how to grow stronger. And I played football, so I was I was a part of something, and I played a role in that. I was good, and I lifted, and I even taught my other teammates how to lift. So my initiation process went right into me initiating other little boys. I don't know what I was doing, but at the time, and I was teaching them how to lift.
Yeah.
And I became a strength coach because I'm an initiator of young men into adulthood through the iron. I get the greatest kick out of watching 14, 15-year-olds go from being scrawny little weak boys into big, strong men that feel something for themselves. I say, in addition to lifting sports, now I'm part of a group of other men, and we've got a mission, and we're going to do something. Again, it's a pseudo initiation, and it's a pseudo process, just like gangs. It's more resourceful, but it's happening. And if you expose yourself to that, you don't necessarily have to be into sports, although, I suggest you do. And it's much more easy through sports. But if you play an instrument, for example, and, you have a male teacher who's a masculine man, most of my music teachers weren't masculine men, but it's a different story. But if he is, and you can draw something, of upliftment from him and mirroring from him, that's a wonderful thing. And you're being initiated. I think a lot of us can think back to our various stages in our childhood and middle adulthood, early adulthood, and middle adulthood. When I was 24-ish, I was, it was strongman. I had a strongman coach, and he beat the shit out of me. I was being initiated into another phase of my life, so on and so forth. So my point is that if we can become conscious of it, and the first thing I would say about becoming conscious of these initiatory phases, the first thing is that there are multiple initiations in our lives as men. And now that I'm on the latter side of 3 of them, at least, there are lots of them, but I'm talking about these big cycles. I can see that, and I can see up ahead where, okay, this is where these cycles of life start making sense. You've got every 12 years about. Age 12, I say 12 to 13, 14, 15, and then 24 to 25, 26, 27. You're going to notice, I have more 24-year-olds that come to my workshops than anything.
Yeah.
24-year. Why? They're all confused. They don't know what's going on in their lives. And then now that I'm 39, 36 to 30, 36, 37, 38, 39
Yeah.
is another quarter of chaos if their perspective isn't there. So just knowing that you're going to go through these phases, just be aware. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, to answer your question, where do you go? Where do you go when you're dealing with them? 14, 15 is good I say it's good to start lifting if you're in school getting into sports. 24, you're going out into your career, you're going out into the world, you're dealing with women, you're dealing potentially with long-term relationships with women. You're thinking about who you're going to be in the world and how you're going to express yourself and how you're going to make money and all the things that are associated with being a man in that way.
Mm-hmm.
14 to 24, you're still kind of a boy. 24 to 36, you better man up.
That's right.
And I see this age of 24-ish as an important phase to consciously seek out a mentor. Now that you're on your own, it's not going to be happenstance like, you get a good coach at school, or you get a manly saxophone teacher, or you had a good dad, or, it's usually just going to be by happenstance, and it's challenging. But when you're 24 and, you live in this day and age, and there's the internet, seek out mentors. So many sought out my advice through YouTube. And as a result, I created Grounding Camp, which is basically turning into a male initiatory process by which we get together as men, and we're led through a process of breaking down and moving away from old blue pill conditioning and beta behavior that kept us as good little boys throughout our youth, and embracing being a dangerous, courageous, confident alpha male in mind and in body, and carrying that into the next phase of your life. Really separating from mommy in this way. So many of the young men that come still live with their moms, and the first advice I say is, get out! You must leave your mother's house. Yes. I don't even want to talk to you about anything else. Damn. You're still living with your mother. We can't move any further. Wow. And then introduction into what it is to be a resourceful man in the world today.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. So this grounding camp, it sounds like that's a great access for young men, or, even middle 20s men, to find out, like, what does it mean to be initiated? What does it mean to gain some of that self-resourcefulness, self-empowerment back, and the masculinity, that like owning their manhood to be able to show up in the world as the leader, as the alpha, as the person who's creating their reality.
Yep.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. Powerful. So Strength Camp is awesome. Also Seeking Out, or Grounding Camp, is awesome. And you run Strength Camp, which is super cool. And then as far as seeking out mentors, you got to know who do we want to become like, who resonates with us, who do we feel that connection with, like, this is someone who I want to hang around, this is someone who I want to become like, this is someone who I want to learn from. Those are really good questions to ask ourselves so that we can be guided to the right destination, the right vision of our future life.
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome, man. So as far as like the principles, is there anything that you've seen stand out as pillars that we need to develop as men that we can start practicing on a daily basis that make for a quote unquote good man, or a strong man, or an alpha?
Yeah, there are. And so to begin, just to reiterate, as if we didn't speak enough about it, there's this critical separation from mother and atonement with the father. This is the way it was described by Joseph Campbell. Separation from the world of mother, atonement with the world of the father. And so move out of your mom's house.
Yep.
Right? Like, that's the first one. A large part of that for men in this, in our early and middle adulthood is understanding intersexual dynamics and how to be with women. And that's very challenging in a world where women have been masculinized. And so it's more difficult to be a alpha male leader in a world that that wants you to be a good little boy, and women pretend like they want to be in charge of men and to be the leaders when really they don't. And it goes against both of our natures. So recognizing if you're dealing with women that there needs to be a fundamental biological, psychological understanding of the differences between how a man is to show up in a healthy relationship with a woman. And so I say male and female, but look, you just got to know yourself, which is a part of it, which is the next phase. Once that was where I was going. You got to know yourself. So maybe I go there now. You got to know yourself. Some guys are it's just they're going to be feminine, and more so now today than ever before, because we've conditioned that way. And if you know yourself to be a feminine man and you enjoy the presence of a strong, powerful woman that can be like your daddy and your mommy at the same time, to be that masculine force in the home, that's okay. It'll work out. I know so many people who are men who are they're feminine and their woman is masculine, and it works really well because they know their roles and they play their part, and it's okay. There's no friction.
Is there long-term consequences for that?
I don't know. I've never been there. And, the guys that I'm speaking about, they seem to be doing really well.
Cool.
Long-term, I don't know, because it seems to be like that's just who they are. The woman is very masculine woman. I love these women. They're great women. They're like Dan Kennedy says, men with balls. It's
badasses.
Like hanging out with them.
Yeah.
They're awesome. But they're not gonna do really well oftentimes with a. I'm just talking about some people,
right.
with a masculine man. The man who's going to take the reins because she's the strong one. She wants to. But I think the majority of people, men and women, would both do well recognizing our biological differences, honoring them, and then playing our roles.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak too much. I can go down so many different rabbit holes. But so know yourself and be still. Know yourself, which means love yourself unconditionally and honor yourself by not making choices that go against the God within you, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. Go against your instinct, go against your intuition, go against your morals, your values, your judgment. We don't take a stand, men, oftentimes, and we bite our lip and we bow down. I'm telling you, because I've experienced it. I know. And then be still and know, which means allow the eternal Father, God the Father, to work through us, to pattern us, to speak to us. When we are still, when we are silenced, when we are not distracted by the tumult, the tornado
Swirl.
of the world, the Maya. The Indians would call it the Maya, the illusion, which is also, if you're talking masculine and feminine energy, is very much the feminine energy, being caught up in a whirlwind of what's going on in the world and sensation. When we can metaphysically separate from the mother in that way, the matter. The word matter is the root word of mother, meaning the things of life. And we can come into our stillness. The pattern, the Father, begins to emerge. We begin to watch as life unfolds in front of us rather than needing to make it happen. And one of the ways that we begin to let go and allow the Father to work through us is with meditation. And that's why Grounding Camp has a lot to do with meditation, various different meditations. Because, like I said before, even if you do have great male mentors and a great father, they're flesh and bone men also too, sinful and not perfect. And will ultimately end up disenfranchised or disappointed if we hope for them to be perfect. They're going to disappoint you. And again, that's an addiction to the feminized world, because it's matter. Men are made of flesh; they're just flesh. And going into the matterless pattern of spirit from which we all emerge, and that is a connection with God. And so, long story short, when we can get into that place and allow our life to unfold through the Father's pattern, there's nothing left to do. Everything else just unfolds. Everything else is just comes and goes.
How do you feel that relates, like the just being and sitting with something and having the Father come through us, the God presence source? How does that relate to purpose and being directed? And borderline, I think for me, it's like I get to be obsessed with my desire, obsessed with my outcome, obsessed with my vision. Otherwise, I'm going to be defeated in the pursuit of it. Because if I'm not so committed to it that I will stop at nothing to be able to achieve it, then life will win, quote unquote. So I'm curious how you balance between listening to Spirit, God, Source, Father, and executing on that vision with tenacity and perseverance and grit.
Well, that's why I said know thyself first. You got to know yourself, and you just described yourself perfectly. Yeah. So now that you know that, right, and you can objectify it in any way, shape, or form that you like. You can see it. It's really up to you. Whatever meaning you give to it is up to you, because you know yourself better than anyone else. Right. And when you know yourself in that way, you're no longer compelled to behave that way, because it's not ruling you from the unconscious. You're conscious that I am afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid to lose face. I'm afraid to disappoint these people in my life. I'm afraid to embarrass myself. I'm afraid to not be enough. And as a result of my fear, I frantically look out into the world in order to create things and to do things and to validate myself. As long as I'm aware of that, it's okay. Yeah. Because it can't control me. I'm doing it. And I know I attribute a large amount of my success to fear, baby. I would not have worked as hard as I worked to get to where I am and have all that toil and tumult in my life if I wasn't scared that I couldn't put food on the table for my family.
Wow.
I have all kinds of fears that brought me. So knowing yourself, I also put with unconditional love, loving yourself. And that means not having a judgment about who you are. So I described all those things. Fearful, yes. We live in a world that conditions us into that fear. But not saying, I wish I wasn't so fearful. I need to change myself. I need to not be this way and be more like a hippie and sit under a tree. Those guys got the right idea. Maybe I need to smoke a little more weed. You see? So having a judgment about your analness and your fear and your anxiety is where we now step out of line with God, because God is working through you. And when we know that about ourselves, when we know ourselves and we see the thoughts coming up or the emotions coming up or the frantic action coming up, it's usually, a lot of times, at least for me, there's fear, and in NLP, they say you're either running away from something or you're running towards something. Yeah. And for me, a lot of my life, I'm running towards things. I have big visions that come to me. And even those visions aren't my visions. Those missions aren't my missions. They're delivered to me. You see, like I serve men, I work with men. That was delivered to me. I didn't pick that one. God is doing that through me. Your mission is for me, the mission is delivered to me. And the old me would then start to get into a panic about how I could run away from where I am right now and run towards that. Okay, what do I got to do? What do I got to call? What do I got to write? So I can go get to that. The newer, wiser me receives the vision, receives the mission, and delights in it. I delight in it. And I think about it. And I might, if I feel impelled, I might write a little bit about it. Might draw a picture, might look at pictures about it. I dream a little bit more. And in that dreamlike state, I'm not unconscious. I try not to be too unconscious, of course. You know. I create space to sit and see what God wants me to do about it. So, for example, one of these visions that I have that have been emerging these past few months about what's unfolding for me is that I'm going to get back to making podcasts or something like this, or regularly sharing. I don't share very much on social media authentically anymore, meaning like it's coming from me here today. I've been thinking about how I'm going to do it and what I'm going to do it, what kind of framework am I going to do it through. I was meditating the other day, and all of a sudden, civil disobedience popped into my head.
Wow.
Civil disobedience. I used to make my YouTube videos in my office, and I had a picture of Henry David Thoreau behind me that said "disobey." And I used to wear a T-shirt that had Henry David Thoreau, and it said "simplify." That's I named my daughter Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a great friend of Henry David Thoreau. And these words, civil disobedience and self-reliance, just kept repeating themselves to me in my head. And as a result, when I was done with my meditation, I was just inspired to go and write this stuff that created a framework for something I may or may not decide to do. And then I put it down and I leave it alone. I allow the ideas to come. That's when I say that that you sit still and allow. The next, being still is one step, after loving yourself and trusting yourself and knowing yourself. But then the third and final step is to allow it to come to you, to allow it to unfold, to, in an objective way, observe how God is working his magic through you.
And also I hear like be inspired by the vision and say, I wonder what can be done with this. Well, let's take an action. Let's write something down. Let's contact someone. Let's do some research. Let's whatever that flowing through next logical step or next inspired step looks like, do it.
Yeah. And it will come to you. Yeah. It'll come to you. A lot of times you'll know instantly what you need to do, but more often than not, we go to our beta conditioning, which makes us go to thinking. Okay, think. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And when we get into that, whenever we're asking questions, one of my teachers says this, Elliot, anytime you ask a question, you're proceeding from fear. The first time I heard that, I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? Every question? She's like, yeah, because every question comes from a place of not knowing and the need to know.
Wow.
And so we start, how am I going to do it? What am I going to do? We get caught up in this fearful banter with ourselves. And a lot of times we don't take action when we're fearful. We get wrapped in activity. So we start like shuffling things and doing things in a frantic way. Action proceeds from complete stillness, where there is no question, where there's just I am. And out of the I am presence, there's a prompt. Oh, I get it. We got to be still enough to get that.
Yeah. It's awesome, man. I love it, Elliot. Final question, and I want to know what's the legacy you are leaving for your family or committed to leaving?
Oh, well, I have an intention for my family. I also have an intention for my family of men worldwide and people and globally. And it's funny because it was delivered to me. Like, it was one of these again. Like, I'm looking at my life. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I stopped this whole need to like create visions and missions. I just allow it to show itself to me. And it was phrased this way by one of my teachers that said, Elliot, you come here to deliver your consciousness to the planet. To deliver my consciousness to the planet.
That's badass.
I'm delivering my consciousness to the planet. I mean, what better time to show up on the planet to deliver your consciousness to the planet. And when we got the internet, where everybody's delivering themselves across the planet, right?
That's awesome.
So yeah, I'm here and I'm doing what I came to do.
Is there any way that you see that you're most inspired to do that in the coming decades, so to speak?
I know that I'm doing my best work delivering my consciousness to the planet when I am taking a stand. Just right where we began our conversation.
Full circle.
Being truthful and authentic and 100% me in an unapologetic way, no matter whose feelings are hurt or who's confused by it. It doesn't matter, because for me to impede that means I'm blocking God.
And we're about flowing with God, allowing it to come through and come to us. Elliot, this is gold, man. Fucking awesome. How do people stay connected with you? What can they be looking out for from you coming forward, moving forward? What's their next steps?
Well, of course, you can just Google Elliott Hulse. I'm here on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Two big projects I'm working on are Grounding Camp and Strength Camp. Strength Camp has been wonderful, initiating young men into middle-aged men or early adulthood, right? Let me put it this way. Teaching young men how to lift, how to go from little boys to strapping young men, all right?
Yeah.
And that's an amazing process, and we're doing a wonderful job with lots of Strength Camp locations worldwide. So we're working with lots of other strength coaches to teach men how to be strong. And then, I'd say that's the physical, working on the body, but also Grounding Camp is like we're working with the soul, working with the body and the soul. And Grounding Camp is where we're initiating men into meaning for our lives and, moving forward as a collective and individually as mature alpha men, leading this world to what's right.
How do we get a hold of those Strength Camp and Grounding Camp?
StrengthCamp.com, GroundingCamp.com. GroundingCamp.com, as we're speaking, I spent all day writing new copy for it. Awesome. So the website looks crappy, right? Like today. If you go there, you're not going to be able to do anything. Don't worry. So by next week, it'll be up, and we'll be announcing our next Grounding Camp, which I'll let you know is in New York.
Okay.
And that's in June, so that's coming soon.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, Elliot, love what you're doing, man. Love the consciousness that's being delivered through you. Thank you for being the stand for men, and I look forward to meeting up in person, giving you a big fucking hug, man, because you're an awesome dude, and keep up the great work, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a great day, bud.
You're welcome. See you soon, okay?
Bye.